Hey skate fans, welcome to the latest episode of the Global Skating Network news show with me, Victor Halthorpe, and with me,
Mitch Whitmore.
In this episode, we got a bunch of exciting news for you guys. There's been a ton of racing, even though it's only been a week since our last episode. We have had the World Cup for long track in Quebec. We have had the short track World Cup, and then we've had Junior World Championships over in Japan. And we're also going to take a look ahead at the upcoming World Championships for long track skaters single distance up in Calgary.
Yeah. Yeah, but before we do, very important, yesterday, if you're not aware, was the Super Bowl, which is basically a holiday here in the United States. And I thought there was something kind of special. There was multiple commercials, and the commercials are a big deal. Multiple commercials that had skaters in them. Some skaters outside on lakes, which was cool. A couple inlining things, or roller skating things. And then during the halftime show, there was a big section that had Usher and company on roller skates. I thought, hey, any little bit of publicity is good publicity for us.
We got Usher and J.
They made it look cool. Yeah. Now we just need Taylor Swift and we're going to be set. Back to the Quebec World Cup. We haven't done an episode post-Quebec. What did you think about the races?
I think it was super interesting. It was cool, the first World Cup to be held up in Quebec, a new track. That also meant that a lot of the Canadians were on their home ice, not just their home country. Right. Obviously raced a bunch in Calgary in the previous years. And those Canadians did really good. Obviously, we did see Jordan do, I'm not going to say do as usual, but
it's
getting
a little crazy now. He did something that has never been done before, and then he did that multiple weekends in a row. It's just hard to keep track of at this point, And now going into Worlds, is it going to be a letdown of sorts if he doesn't win three distances?
Yeah. It is crazy that at this age, he has already made it a failure if he doesn't win multiple distances at any race he competes in.
Yep.
We talked about it that if it wasn't for the fact that he skated the 5,000 meter in Salt Lake City, he'd be undefeated, not just in a distance like we talked about. Yuta has done that, but undefeated across any distance he's participated in the last 9 races or so.
Right. And again, back to that, I mean, that was a very unfair assessment of his 5K abilities. It was 20 minutes or less post 1,000 where he won. To be able to go out there and do a 5K is a tall task. So I wonder what he would do if he did not have that race beforehand. Moving on to some other stuff from Quebec. The women's mass start was a wild time.
If you had put money on the results, I think you would have earned a good amount of money there.
Yep, pretty long shot odds, I would say, for the the podium. But I thought it was great. All the girls that tend to go for the points early on ended up just staying away, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see that more often. I mean, if that group bands together and decides to take off. That's going to put the top dogs under pressure and see what happens.
The one thing I do wonder, and I think the main reason we don't see this more often already, is because it is, to some extent, a team event. You can have 2 skaters in the final or in the A group if you do well.
Yep.
And you would assume that if you gotta admit, like at least looking at their 3K, 5K, 1,500 meter times, that we had stronger skaters in the pack when these girls broke away and ultimately won the race. Why would they not make their team make work for them, like to catch that breakaway? One thing could be that they already made an agreement, like we're just going to race for the best skater, or the fact that this was the World Cup final. So I wonder if, because in the end, the World Cup is a series of events where at the end, you win the grand prize if you do well. If they already calculate, like if me and Maganelli knew, well, if they're going to win it, the Dutch can't catch me. Or if the Canadians are like, we're going to go first and second the all, if we don't catch those, like, let's just, like a Tour de France almost.
Yep. I do think that was part of it.
Yeah.
I do think it also helped that, like, the Swiss had 2 girls in there, in the breakaway, that is, and, one essentially sacrificed in a way for the other. And it, ended up working out. So I'm excited to see if that can happen again in the future.
I'm talking about the mass start. The men's mass start was a very different race, but also a very, very unexpected winner. Coming not just from the B group, but coming from the juniors. Still a junior. Japanese skater
Shomu Sasaki. He did not go to Junior Worlds, which I'm sure he would have done quite well there. I assume just preparing for Worlds, staying in Calgary. But yeah, he won it
17 years old.
Dominant fashion, led out, would you say 600 meters
Yeah.
left in the race? And normally you don't see that. You know, if somebody's
If you do
leading
like
out,
tumbling around behind him.
yeah, something happened, but they just could not keep up.
Yeah.
And it was Jaewon Chung who had won the World Cup here in
Like
Salt
he's the
Lake
guy
City.
you can't keep up with.
Right.
Yeah, he was-
On the sprint. And he just couldn't get by him. And honestly, during that last straightaway, there was no, I don't think he really closed the gap at all. So it was really, really fun race to watch.
Yeah.
And we got another contender that's
wow.
young.
17 years. That was the youngest individual World Cup winner, individual distance World Cup winner in history.
Wow. That's a good stat.
That's crazy. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that he could have done really well at the Junior Worlds also.
Yeah, I think so. Especially 5K and mass start.
The World Cup in Quebec was also the 6th. We used to call the 6th World Cup the World Cup final. There would be extra points for this World Cup. Now it is basically just a World Cup like the others, though it is the final World Cup of the year. So it also meant that we would have the final rankings.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of things did change.
No, but it was close. They really made it dramatic. So Aaron Jackson and Wataru Morishige, they made it interesting by doing, for their standards, poorly on the first 500 of the two 500s that weekend. And it really closed the gap. So Laurent had a good chance going into the second 500. And then Min Sun Kim also was really close. So had Min Sun gotten first and Aaron worse than third, it would have gone the other way.
First, yeah.
You know, and after a whole season's worth of work, one bad race on day one of World Cup number 6 could have put them behind. But they both ended up taking the overall title. So it was Jackson first and then Morishige for the men. Shifting over to the short track world, we are back with our World Cup racing there. And speaking of coming back, we have some competitors that return to racing.
Yeah, pretty cool. While we were missing some of the good skaters on long track, we definitely saw some of the good ones come back to short track. We saw Schulding again. She's been out for almost a whole year now. And same for Kim Boutin.
Yeah.
And they did pretty well, I would say.
Yeah, they both made it to A finals. You got to assume that there's some level of rust that they got to shake off. Schulting was third in one of the races. And I would say, though, she did look a little bit off in comparison speed-wise to the other girls. It looked like to me, Hannah and Kristen kind of gapped her a bit towards the end of the race. But I'd still say it's a successful first World Cup back.
I'd take it.
And I'm sure she's going to be right in the mix. And Bhutan as well was made some finals, and I think she's probably pretty happy with that after some time away.
Yeah, it seems like we have an idea of what handful of skaters we're going to be looking at on the women's side when we move closer to the World Championships. It's going to be obviously the two of them. And then we've seen Kristen Santos be pretty consistent. We've seen Kim Gilly, very consistent, double gold this weekend.
A double winner again.
And Hannah Desmet.
And so I think she's solidified her lead in the Crystal Globe, at least for another little bit. But yeah, Hannah's on fire. It seems like, according to Fontana's words, that Hannah seems about the same speed-wise and is just a little bit better tactician. So that's high praise.
It's also a big thing in short
The best short tracker.
Yeah. On the men's side, we did see a couple of disqualifications.
Yep. Dennis from Kazakhstan, that was a wild one. Full arm to block the Canadian from passing. And speaking of, the Canadian men did really well this weekend. A lot of medalists, 4 medalists.
For different medals.
Different.
Yeah,
Stephen
impressive.
Dubois still leads the Crystal Globe. Short track, some exciting things happening. Next weekend is another World Cup that we're looking forward to, and then World Champs is lingering thereafter.
Peak of the season is definitely coming close.
Should be fun. Shifting back over to long track, at the same time, we had the Junior World Championships, and some unsurprising results for the most part, I'd say. But a couple interesting things. I mean, for the winners, we had Angel Dahlman. She crushed everybody across the board.
We call that one for years back.
I think she won by a couple Samolog points, so we knew that. She won last year as well, and she is still a B2, I believe. So, yeah, it's she's going to have quite the run. And on the men's side, we had Norwegian, first and third for the Norwegians.
Yeah, and on top of that, they also won the 5K by Sigurd Henriksen, a third skater. That was more interesting in terms of who's going to win it. And ultimately the winner was the Norwegian Didrik Eng, Sverre Lunde Pedersen's cousin. Pretty fun fact there.
Pretty good skater there.
Another interesting thing, he did not podium in the overall, but he did get second in the 1500 meter, was Finn Sonnenkolb.
That sounds good.
That he is also still a junior B, and we saw him win every distance at the Youth Olympics.
Right.
So 2 years younger than most of these other skaters, and he managed to grab a medal there.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Exciting for the future.
But he was good across the board. You know, he was top 10, I think, in everything. And a couple podiums in the 1,000 and 1,500. So he seems to be a really good skater. And Germany, I think, has kind of needed somebody to be their next star. So maybe he's the one.
Definitely seems like it.
He's already pretty good. So 148.1 in Japan is not a bad 1,500 time.
A final little thing, the men's mass start. Remember the fact that their best, what we must assume is their best junior skater, but technically the best master skater right now in the whole world, was not there, but they still managed to grab first and third.
Yeah, wow. And again, in dominant fashion, they really, he pulled away from the group and let it out for a whole extra lap. And it also seemed potentially like the lap counters got it wrong. At least on the screen, it was showing that it was the 10th lap, and then they rang the bell. So it also seemed like the skaters maybe were sprinting for a whole extra lap. Now, one thing that irritated me from this race, so this German kid, not the same one, he went on a breakaway and he had a massive gap. I loved to see that he timed it perfectly. And then halfway through, maybe 4 or 5 laps later, a kid from Portugal decides to go to the front and he just leads the whole pack back up. And he has no other teammates in the race, mind you. But he's essentially just sacrificed himself for the rest of the guys. And to me, I was yelling at the screen. I was so mad that
favorites got to play their cards against each other. Right. You should not. Yeah.
If you're from Portugal at the current moment, you probably should let the other guys lead you up to them and then surprise them at the finish. Don't do all the work for the Norwegians who have Sigurd and Didrik in the race. I really thought that the German kid should have been really mad at Portuguese. I
really believe that. I was honestly thinking damn, they got to put in an effort because for the juniors, the master, unlike the seniors, as a 16 lapper, they only skate 10 laps. 10 laps. I think he got half a lap. Close to, by himself, he was huge.
He was good.
Yeah.
And then this young buck decided, and maybe he needed some sort of preem points for maybe it's funding or whatever it is, but it was still such a shame to see that. He had it, and nobody from one of the main teams brought him back. So sad day.
The ultimate highlight of the long track season will be, depending on how Jordan does in the all-rounds, will probably be the World Single Distance Championships kicking off in less than a week up in Calgary.
Yeah, obviously very excited. I'm going to be driving up in 2 days.
We're going to have some live interviews, maybe?
Maybe. We'll see with the mini mic. But really excited to see what happens. There's a lot of question marks, I think, going into the weekend. I think especially because so many people did end up skipping the Quebec World Cup. Are the Canadians going to stay dominant? I would say that they were exceptionally well, did exceptionally well in Quebec. And I'm assuming that, the likes of Ted and Evany and company will also do very well in Calgary, since that's their home track.
We've seen Ted skate well in Calgary
many times.
A lot of times, yeah.
And I wonder if that could even be, throw his hat in the ring for the 5K. I think it could be a very interesting battle. And the way that he attacked it here, if he hangs on for just that little bit more, he could be right there. Very excited to see how they do.
Especially that 5K. Usually in the 5K especially, you got an idea who's going to be the best skater here.
Right.
But the fact that Patrick skipped it and that Sander Eitrim ended up being sick and couldn't skate, that was a very, very exciting battle there.
Yep.
And Ted Jan, who was it seems very stoked, even surprised to be in the podium in Salt Lake, ended up winning the thing by multiple seconds. The one thing, though, that I think could maybe shake the Canadian team is the news that we received from Schaatsen.nl that their head coach, Bart Schouten's head coach for many, many years, is not currently part of the team anymore.
Yeah, Bart, was part of our coaches panel, very gracious to give us his time there, and he had some awesome answers. But yeah, it sounds like some sort of issues with a couple of the skaters. We don't know all the details, but yeah, it sounds like some sort of leave of absence, and not sure if that's going to end up in being a permanent thing, or maybe he'll be back for Worlds. Yeah. Who knows? But I mean, yeah, hopefully it all gets resolved and everybody's happy.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the thing where it really depends what type of athlete you are. Some people or some skaters will just like have their tunnel vision, like I don't just somebody else be my times. But also I could see other people, I know for myself, like very, when you have those habits, when you know what works, if all of a sudden things change before the main event of the year.
For sure.
Well, it's going to be exciting to see how that will affect the different skaters.
Yep. Shout out to Will Dutton for having to take that over at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm sure the whole staff
is,
is going to be working on it together. But yeah, again, hopefully all of that gets resolved. We like Bart.
More unanswered questions that we will see at the World Championships is probably how well Jutta Leerdam is going to skate that 1,000. She has been basically unbeatable. We said earlier this year that she has not won 1,000 meter for 19,000 meters in a row?
Yep, including time trials, but
still,
it was still a good stat.
Yeah,
it was a lot, and she has been beat quite a few times at this point this year. She had a couple that were very off. She also has won one, so very interested to see how she does. Again, another person that skipped Quebec, so we'll see.
And the level has been getting up there. Like Miho and Kimi are just so consistent that if she does not bring her A game, I don't see her winning the 1,000 this year.
Yeah, I agree. But if she does, it's hard to see anybody beating her. At her very best. Last year, she was at her best in Calgary, and she skated great. I also think that women's 1,000 is going to be very interesting. Femke's been skating well in those. That's true. So should be a fun one to watch. And I think the race that I might be most excited about, and I never say this, but would be the team pursuit for the men. Yes. I think the battle that has been brewing between the Norwegians and the Americans is going to be super exciting. Now, the U.S. team dominated, I would say. Stole the world record back from the Norwegians on home ice here. Now that the Norwegians have had more time to acclimate, and it's also a little bit of a step down to Calgary altitude-wise, I think we're going to have a really cool battle.
It is going to be a wild one. The last two team pursuits we saw, they broke the world record. And it was not ideal air pressure. It wasn't even at altitude. I think this is just going to be a crazy showdown between the two teams. Nobody's on home ice anymore. It's going to be a fair battle. Like you said, the Americans seem a little stronger. They come out of winning it. They won the World Cup season. But we should also mention that it's not the first time we've seen the American team win the overall World Cup and not perform well at the big championships. They had a crash last year at World Champs. The Olympics, they came into those as the big favorite, breaking the world record, just like we've seen it this time, and they finished third. So it is not a given. And
man, I've got a bit more faith in them now, though, I must say. And the race last year, they were not going to win anyways. Their time was definitely fading, and then they unfortunately crashed. At the Olympics, they were not, I would say, at their very best either as a team pursuit group. But right now, it is hard to argue that they're not, because they individually, as we mentioned in the last episode, were not skating at their very best. However, as a unit, they were incredible. Yeah. So
not even if we just compare them to the
Norwegians, continue that.
Compare them to the Italians, compare them to the Dutch skaters, they're in a different league as a single unit.
Yeah, and even comparing to themselves, their own individual times were worse than previous.
It's wild.
But as a team, they went faster.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. Doesn't need to. They figured it out. So.
For the rest of it, I think it's just going to be exciting how much Jordan Stoltz is going to win with, and to see if Patrick still knows how to skate after missing out on the World Cup.
I think he'll figure it out. I think Jordan will figure it out. I just have a hunch. Jordan's going to be super interesting, and like we said, it's almost a letdown if he doesn't, which is not fair because he's just been on fire. But I think the men's 500 is going to be a tough one. Somebody can easily throw down a crazy fast race. One little thing happens on the start, so you never know. I do think the 1,000 and 1,500, he's going to be very difficult to beat.
It's the Jordan Stahl show. All right, final question for you. We're going to see any world records?
I think we'll see a world record.
Okay. Team pursuit?
I think we'll see 2 world records.
Okay, exciting. I'm going to go with no. I think this will be the ultimate. Salt Lake City is the fastest ice rink in the world.
Yeah, I agree that Calgary is not nearly as fast as it used to be. It used to be a back and forth battle between the two.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just throw it out there and say that there is a chance of 2 world records. Not going to tell you which.
Okay. Write it down on the paper, and I'll read that out in next episode to see if you're, the know-it-all about skating, or if you're just saying that's sound cool.
Yeah, I might just not have a clue.
This is also the time to thank our sponsor of the show, VikingSchaatsen.nl. Yeah, we don't even have to pretend like we're on it. We are on Viking skates. Mitch here is still Maple skates and Maple blades.
Yep, waiting to get my Vikings ready to go.
And then we will see how much faster you actually will go. I've been a Viking. If you look at the next World Cup, you're going to see basically every single skater there on the Viking blades.
Yep.
But I also want to mention to all of you guys that Viking is more than just blades. We're going to leave a link below here in the description of this video where you can hop onto their website and find skates, like the boots, not just for elite custom skates, but basically for anyone. I know the weather is pretty cold in Europe right now. If you're looking to try out skating on a lake, hop on that link and get some good equipment right from the start.
Yeah, and I'm also excited to see what their cycling equipment is. They're starting to get their foot in that department, and the short track stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a plethora of equipment items that we're going to be checking out soon.
That'll be a lot of fun content and a lot of cool reviews for you guys in the spring, the summer, the time to come. Trivia question of the week.
So to cover our trivia questions from last week, we asked which country has the most competing athletes, and that's in the world or at their home tracks, not just the ones at World Cups, but who has the most amount of skaters that has yet to win a World Cup gold this season. And now the World Cups are over. They did not win a gold. What country was that?
That was Germany.
Germany.
Technically the worst country at making use of their talent mass.
Not a great thing to have,
in a nice way.
But we do know that they have some up-and-coming talent, and they used to be the powerhouse. So they're just in a lull right now, but it seems like they're going to be on their way.
3 fully covered indoor rings, tons of skaters, bunch of outdoor rings, and it's just a matter of getting the results now. Obviously, Finn, the junior kid, is coming up fast, so hopefully for them, that'll change.
Yep. Next week's trivia question.
Okay. There is currently one single world record that was not set at a high altitude rink. The trivia question for next week is, what distance and by what skater was that record set?
That's a good question. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to comment below with your answer or any other questions or comments from the video today. Maybe add in some predictions for Worlds. We're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, love to hear if you think we're wrong. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe, like, share with your friends if they're interested in skating or if you just want to be annoying.
Yeah. And thanks again to Viking.
Sweet.
Okay, on ice in 11 minutes.